November 20th, 1943. Tarawa Atoll. Before dawn. The air is heavy and still, thick with salt and smoke that never quite clears. Palm fronds drip from last night's rain. Along a shallow perimeter scraped into coral and sand, U.S. Marines settle into positions that are too close, too exposed, and far too quiet. In the darkness, shapes move. No one expects a long firefight here. The jungle compresses distance. Visibility collapses to a few meters. Everything happens suddenly or not at all. A Marine tightens his grip on a weapon that does not belong in anyone's mental picture of modern war. A shotgun. Japanese infantry doctrine has prepared for this moment in a particular way. Training emphasizes rifles, bayonets, light machine guns, grenades, and coordinated charges. Combat manuals assume enemies armed with similar tools, bolt-action rifles firing deliberate shots, automatic weapons anchoring defensive lines, artillery reshaping terrain. What doctrine does not account for is this. A short-barreled, 12-gauge shotgun, carried by a sentry whose job is not to assault, but to stop whatever appears in the next few steps. When contact comes, it is not announced. A shape breaks from foliage. A shout cut short. The Marine fires once. The sound is not sharp like a rifle crack, but flat and heavy, swallowed almost immediately by the jungle. There is no follow-up burst, no sustained exchange. Just silence again. From the Japanese perspective, this encounter does not register as a new category of threat. There is no formal report. No after-action note that identifies a novel weapon. No doctrinal revision. The engagement is too small, too localized, too chaotic. That is the pattern. American shotguns enter the Pacific War quietly. They are not issued en masse. They are not the centerpiece of any tactical manual. They arrive through authorization tables, guard rosters, and logistical allowances that treat them as specialized tools rather than infantry arms. Production records show tens of thousands manufactured for wartime use. Authorization tables permit hundreds per division. But those numbers obscure the reality on the ground. A shotgun is usually carried by someone on perimeter duty. A sentry, patrolman, a guard at a command post or supply dump. It is a weapon for moments measured in feet, not yards. For night, not daylight. For sudden contact, not maneuver warfare. This matters because it shapes how the weapon is experienced by the enemy. Japanese infantrymen do not face shotgun-armed Marines advancing in waves. They encounter them at the edges, at night, in close brush, in moments where cause and effect blur together. The weapon feels unexpected not because it is everywhere, but because it appears where doctrine says nothing should be there. The shotgun's technical characteristics reinforce this effect. At close range, it is devastating. The ability to fire rapidly without manual cycling, by holding the trigger and pumping the action, makes it unforgiving in sudden encounters. In confined terrain, where aiming a rifle takes precious fractions of a second, that matters. But the same environment that makes the shotgun effective also exposes its limits. Early ammunition relies on paper hulls. In the Pacific, paper absorbs moisture. Swells, deforms, jams. Reliability suffers. Marines quickly learn that a weapon meant for certainty can become a liability if ammunition fails at the wrong moment. These problems are not theoretical. They are noted, complained about, worked around. Brass-case shells exist, but they are scarce until very late in the war, too late to matter for most major campaigns. This logistical friction prevents the shotgun from becoming more than it already is. It is not standardized for frontline assault. It is not integrated into fire and maneuver doctrine. It remains what it started as, a situational answer to a situational problem. From the Japanese side, this creates a strange asymmetry. There is no formal countermeasure, because there is no formal recognition of the weapon as a system-level threat. No captured manuals discuss it. No protests are lodged. No casualty statistics isolate it. In memoirs written after the war, the shotgun is almost entirely absent. Men who fought through the same jungles, who described flamethrowers, mortars, artillery, and machine guns in detail, do not mention it at all. That absence is telling. The shotgun does not shape battles. It shapes moments. Moments that are terrifying, abrupt, and difficult to categorize, but too limited to influence the broader conduct of the war. Its reputation grows later, detached from how it was actually used. In the Pacific, the jungle does not reward general-purpose solutions. It rewards tools that work once in the right place at the right distance. The American shotgun fits that description perfectly, and that is precisely why it never becomes what popular legend later claims it was. 1943 to 1944. Central and South Pacific. Night operations. The jungle compresses everything. Distance, sound, reaction time. What looks like 100 meters on a map becomes 5 in reality. What doctrine assumes will be a controlled engagement becomes a collision of silhouettes and noise. In these conditions, weapons are judged less by theory than by what they do in the first second of contact. This is where the shotgun earns its place, and where its limits are exposed. For American units, the shotgun's value is pragmatic. On perimeter defense, in patrols pushing through dense vegetation, or guarding command posts at night, it solves a narrow problem. Stopping a sudden close-range threat before it becomes a melee. It does not replace rifles. It does not anchor a line. It does not project power. It ends encounters. From the Japanese infantryman's perspective, this matters less than popular memory suggests. Japanese training emphasizes aggressive movement, infiltration, and closing with the enemy. In the jungle, that often means brief, violent contact regardless of what the opponent carries. A shotgun blast is shocking, but so is a burst from a submachine gun, a grenade detonating at arm's length, or a bayonet thrust in the dark. The environment equalizes fear. Crucially, the shotgun does not alter Japanese tactical assumptions at scale. There is no doctrinal update warning of a new American infantry weapon. No widespread change in movement patterns. No specific countermeasure beyond what already exists. Caution at night, massed movement, speed. The reason is simple. Shotguns are encountered too inconsistently to define the threat environment. American authorization tables allow for hundreds per division, but that does not mean hundreds appear at the point of contact. Distribution is uneven. Ammunition supply is fragile. Some units carry them regularly. Others never see one. In many cases, the shotgun stays with rear area security, military police, or base defense, roles vital but invisible to enemy doctrine. Then there is reliability. Paper-hulled ammunition fails in humidity. Shells swell. Actions jam. Marines learn quickly that a weapon meant for certainty demands constant care. Shotguns are cleaned obsessively or left behind. This reality limits their spread more effectively than any tactical argument. The historical record reflects this restraint. There are no reliable casualty statistics isolating shotgun use. No Japanese reports identifying it as a cause of disproportionate losses. No post-war analysis treating it as a defining feature of Pacific infantry combat. And perhaps most telling, the absence in memoir. Veterans who wrote extensively about the Pacific, men like Eugene Sledge and Robert Leckie, describe in detail the terror of artillery, the brutality of close combat, the omnipresence of death. They do not describe shotguns, not because they did not exist, but because they did not define the experience. This silence complicates later legend. In hindsight, the shotgun's close-range lethality is easy to dramatize. It fits modern expectations of shock and fear, but contemporary evidence suggests its psychological impact has been overstated, retroactively amplified by imagery rather than documentation. The Pacific War produced many weapons that terrified Japanese infantry. The shotgun was not unique among them. What it was, instead, was specific. It belonged to the night, to the perimeter, to the moment when a sentry needed an answer immediately. It did not belong to the assault, or the advance, or the doctrine. This distinction explains everything that follows. Why the shotgun never became standard infantry equipment, why Japanese forces never formally responded to it, and why its reputation grew later, after the war, when distance blurred the difference between momentary terror and strategic effect. In the Pacific, weapons that mattered changed outcomes. Weapons like the shotgun changed seconds. And in a war measured in months and years, that difference is decisive. 1944. U.S. Marine Corps Logistics Offices. Continental United States. On paper, the shotgun looks significant. Production figures are impressive. Tens of thousands manufactured. Authorization tables allowing hundreds per division. The numbers suggest a weapon poised to matter. But paper is not the battlefield. Marine Corps tables of organization tell only part of the story. Authorization does not equal issue. Issue does not equal carry. Carry does not equal use. Between factory and foxhole lies a long chain of decisions, constraints, and priorities. Shotguns fall through the gaps. Unlike rifles or machine guns, shotguns are not standardized across units. They require specific ammunition. They demand constant maintenance in humid conditions. They offer limited range in environments where engagements can shift suddenly from meters to hundreds of meters. Commanders make pragmatic choices. If ammunition is unreliable, the weapon stays behind. If training time is limited, priority goes to rifles. If resupply is uncertain, versatility wins. As a result, many Marines go through entire campaigns without seeing a shotgun in use. Others encounter them only on guard duty or base defense. The weapon's presence is real but inconsistent. For the enemy, inconsistency equals irrelevance at scale. Japanese after-action reports reflect this reality. They catalog weapons that define engagements. Automatic rifles, machine guns, mortars, flamethrowers. These are systems that shape movement and casualty patterns. The shotgun does not appear as a category. There is no Japanese term developed to describe it as a distinct battlefield threat. No captured document calls for a response. No training circular warns of it. From a doctrinal perspective, it barely exists. This absence becomes clearer after the war. Japanese veterans interviewed in the 1950s and 1960s describe close combat in the jungle as chaotic and brutal. They recall grenades detonating at arm's length, machine gun bursts in dense foliage, sudden ambushes that ended before they began. When asked about American small arms, they mention rifles and automatics, not shotguns. The contrast between production numbers and battlefield memory reveals something important about how wars actually function. Weapons matter not by how many are built, but by how predictably they appear, how reliably they function, and how deeply they are integrated into doctrine. By those measures, the shotgun never crosses the threshold. Even its most distinctive feature, the ability to fire rapidly at close range, does not remain unique for long. Submachine guns, improved semi-automatic rifles, and aggressive use of grenades fill the same niche with fewer logistical penalties. The shotgun becomes redundant, useful, situational, but unnecessary. Late in the war, brass-cased shotgun ammunition finally becomes more available. Reliability improves. But by March 1945, the Pacific campaigns that defined infantry combat are largely over. The weapon arrives at maturity after its moment has passed. It influences nothing. What remains is reputation. A weapon remembered for what it could do, rather than what it actually did, how often, and to whom. In the gap between authorization and experience, legend grows. The shotgun story in the Pacific is not one of suppression or terror at scale. It is the story of a tool that worked exactly as intended, within a role that never expanded. And that limitation explains why Japanese infantry never truly expected it. Not because it was shocking, but because it was never common enough to matter. 1944 to 1945. Imperial Japanese Army Intelligence Offices. Rear areas. If a weapon truly alters the battlefield, it leaves traces. Requests for countermeasures. Doctrinal notes. Captured equipment analyses. Formal protests through diplomatic or propaganda channels. None of these exist for American shotguns in the Pacific. This absence is not accidental. During the First World War, Germany formally protested the use of shotguns on the Western Front, arguing they caused unnecessary suffering. That protest is often retroactively projected onto the Pacific War, as if the same outrage followed Marines through the jungle. It did not. There is no surviving Japanese diplomatic protest regarding American shotguns. No intelligence summary warning frontline units of a new weapon. No operational directive addressing their use. The reason is straightforward. From the Japanese perspective, there was nothing to protest. Shotguns did not create distinctive casualty patterns. They did not appear frequently enough to demand attention. They did not introduce a new category of wound that Japanese medical officers could not already attribute to close combat. In jungle warfare, death at short range is already brutal and ambiguous. A grenade, a bayonet, a submachine gun burst, all produce outcomes that are difficult to differentiate after the fact. The shotgun did not stand out. More importantly, Japanese doctrine already assumed that close-range encounters would be violent and final. Training emphasized shock, speed, and willingness to close with the enemy. The expectation was not survival through distance, but dominance through aggression. In that context, the shotgun offers no doctrinal surprise. It is simply another way to die in the dark. Japanese intelligence priorities reflect this reality. Resources are devoted to understanding American air power, naval gunnery, logistics, amphibious techniques. These are the systems that decide campaigns. Small arms, unless they radically alter engagement ranges or formations, are secondary. The shotgun never crosses that threshold. This explains why later claims of its terrifying psychological impact must be treated carefully. Fear in combat is real, but it is not selective. Japanese infantrymen feared artillery, flamethrowers, and machine guns not because of legend, but because those weapons appeared consistently and predictably. The shotgun did not. In post-war interviews, Japanese veterans describe American firepower as overwhelming, but generalized. They speak of automatic weapons, grenades, mortars. They do not isolate the shotgun because, from their perspective, it was not a system. It was an encounter. This distinction matters. Weapons that change wars are remembered collectively. Weapons that change moments are remembered, if at all, individually. The shotgun belongs to the second category. As the war nears its end, American units continue to carry shotguns where they make sense. Guarding airfields, patrolling perimeters, securing prisoners, walking jungle trails at night. They are used competently, sometimes decisively, often not at all. They do exactly what doctrine quietly intended. Nothing more. Post-war years. Archives, memoirs, and retellings. The shotgun's reputation grows after the shooting stops. Not in after-action reports. Not in casualty statistics. But in stories. In the decades following the Pacific War, the shotgun becomes symbolic. Its image is compact, visceral, and easy to understand. A close-range weapon in a close-range war. It fits modern expectations of jungle combat perfectly. Too perfectly. As distance from the war increases, distinctions blur. Guard duty merges with assault. Authorization merges with actual issue. A weapon designed for perimeter defense is remembered as a frontline terror. The absence of documentation becomes proof of secrecy rather than evidence of irrelevance. This is how legend forms. Popular narratives emphasize what the shotgun could do rather than what it did. The slam-fire action, the spread at close range, the shock of sudden contact. All of this is real, but none of it is unique in a war defined by sudden, brutal encounters. The Pacific was already terrifying. The shotgun did not create that fear. What the historical record actually shows is more restrained. Shotguns filled a niche. They solved specific problems. They worked when conditions aligned. They did not reshape doctrine. They did not define engagements. They did not alter outcomes. The absence of Japanese response is not evidence of suppression or denial. It is evidence of proportion. From the Japanese perspective, the American shotgun was not a system to counter, but an occasional tool encountered in circumstances already assumed to be lethal. That is why it left so little trace. In separating documented reality from popular memory, a clearer picture emerges. The American shotgun in the Pacific was not a mythic terror weapon. It was not a secret advantage. It was not ignored because it was forbidden or feared. It was ignored because it did not matter enough. This does not diminish the experiences of those who carried it or faced it. Individual encounters were violent, sudden, and final. But wars are not shaped by individual encounters alone. They are shaped by systems that appear everywhere, work reliably, and force the enemy to adapt. The shotgun never did that. This true story is quieter and more instructive. It shows how a weapon can be widely produced yet marginal in practice, how authorization can diverge from use, how memory can elevate what documentation leaves behind, and how hindsight, searching for symbols, can mistake the edge of combat for its center. Japanese infantry never expected American shotguns not because they were shocked by them, but because, in the chaos of jungle war, they were never important enough to expect at all.